Hi everybody, this is Della from The Beauty of Play, and today I'm going to show you how we quill snowflakes. So this is a quilling kit that I purchased off Amazon. I'll leave a link for you. It comes with all kinds of paper, which initially when I was looking at quilling, I was thinking of doing myself, and I am so grateful that I didn't, because this was an inexpensive kit that came with all kinds of colored paper strips and additional tools that we might need. They had scissors, tweezers, which come in really handy for using small objects, the quilling tool, and the sizing mat that I have not used because it's not very easy for children to use. And then I purchased these 4 additional quilling tools so I would have enough for my children. So I would say beginning, really the only thing that you would need is a glue bottle, the quilling tool, and paper. But this kit comes with everything. You can see on the back side of here, it's got concentric circles that are divided into 8s and 6 to make it easy. You could use this to keep your snowflake aligned, or you could also make your own. Because I'm recording a video for parents to use with children, I have made it in a way that I think is most conducive to children. So it goes without saying that the more precise you are on the size and consistency in making each of the quills, the better the snowflake will come out. Instead of using the sizing tool, what I'm using are the size of the strips. If I were working with children, I might double the size that I used for this snowflake. But you can see here, I'm starting with 4ths. I'm halving and then halving again to get the size that I'm going to start with. We're going to start by making little teardrops to create the center of the snowflake. You're going to need 6 of each of the designs of whatever we make to extend out from 6 points on our snowflake. And there's a lot of room for creativity here. I'm showing a few things that can be done with quilled paper and going through the steps, but there's so much more that could be done. I think the key really is just staying in that 6-point symmetry. Here I'm putting a little glue on the end, and one of the things that I could have done better was a little more patience and waiting for the glue to dry. So once you put the glue on and put it together, you just hold it for a few seconds to allow it to dry. To make the teardrop, I'm going to use this tool. You can also use your fingers to pull the inner circle to the side and then just pinch one side of it evenly, being careful not to curve it as you go. And that's the teardrop. And we're going to make 6 of these. You place the paper in the quill and slowly start to twist the quill. You want to keep the paper on top of itself as much as possible with an even amount of pressure. Then you let the circle go. It'll untwist slightly. Put a tiny bit of glue. A small amount of glue is really the key, and I know children like to really use the glue. This little bottle that came with the kit is perfect for that because the tube that the glue runs through is tiny, so it's difficult for them to get too much of them. Okay, so I have 6, and I'm going to use the side of my board, but you can use any straight edge to line these up so we have a better symmetry. You can see I'm putting 2 along the edge, and that center one is coming in the middle. I'm just going to put glue on one side of each of the 2 teardrops that go along the edge. I'm not putting glue on the center one. Just want to reiterate, the smaller amount of glue, the better. You want just enough to hold everything in place. So I'm lining these up along this edge, gently pushing each of them in so they're touching in the center and allowing a few seconds for them to dry. When this finishes, I take the other three and do the same thing. Now I'm going to take these three. I'm only putting glue again on one side. And then I'm going to line them up against the straight edge. Two of them along the side, and the third one goes in the middle. And I just gently press evenly on all three sides. I'm trying to get that center one coming straight out so that my symmetry is nice. You want to check the symmetry each step throughout this process. And now I'm going to take the other side and place the glue on and put these two sides together to create our 6-point symmetry. Holding for a few seconds to make sure that it dries. This is probably the hardest part of the process. And there is our 6 teardrop section. And we're going to move on to making little circles to go in between those teardrops. And on these little circles, I'm taking half of the length that we had for the teardrops. So this is 1/8 of the paper. If you watch here, it's being halved 3 times. This is the first half. And then I'm folding it over and halving it again. That's giving us a 1/4. And then I'm halving it again to give us the 1/8. And these 1/8 are what we're going to use for the circle. The process for the circles is the same. Take the paper and put it in the quilling pin and move it to as far edge as you can get. And then with an even consistency, roll the paper up and then take it off of the quill. You want to roll the paper so it stays on top of itself. And here I'm just going to do all 6 of the circles at once and then go back and glue the edges down. My last circle. So this is not a particularly challenging project, but it does take quite a bit of time. Unlike other projects we've done, you have to do at least 6 of each item for the snowflake symmetry. So depending on the age and the interest of your child, they may lose steam along the way. I will be sure to show you different stopping points within the video in case your child does not have the stamina for the entire snowflake. Older children won't have a problem, but younger children may run out of interest and attention for the amount of time, or perhaps you could work with your child. So here I am taking each of the circles, putting a little dab of glue on the sides that are going to touch the teardrops in our center, and putting them in between each of the teardrops. At this point, it still looks a little messy, and you can see that it doesn't look quite symmetrical, but as we continue to add on, it's much easier to do. So going back to 1/8 again, this is the same size that we used for the circles. I'm going to fold these in half, and we're going to make a little V with curls curling outward. So I'm taking one side, putting it to the edge, and twisting it towards me. I'm using my thumb and finger as to measure the distance that I want to leave straight, where I want my curl to stop. And then I turn it around and curl the other side again to the outside. So it's making this little curly V. And those are going to go, they're going to touch the circles and go directly on top of our teardrops in the center. So again, I'm folding it in half, making sure that the paper lines on top of itself, taking one edge, placing it into my quilling tool, and quilling towards myself. I'm using my thumbnail, as a measure to know when to stop. But when you finish each piece, it's a good idea to lay it up next to the other to make sure it's relatively the same size. And don't be afraid to do them over if you need to. So here I've done all 6, and I'm going to take each of these, put a dab of glue, just a tiny bit, on the bottom of each curl, and then glue those to the circles on either side of each teardrop. If your child is running out of steam, this is a good place to stop. You definitely have your 6-point symmetry. It definitely looks like a snowflake. It's cute and sweet. And if they're having difficulty going on from here, this is a good place to stop. But there are 2 other parts that I'm going to show you to this. And again, there's a great deal of variety in the snowflakes. You could do several other shapes or designs with the quilled paper, just keeping it in a 6-point symmetry. I also find that having pieces that extend out, like the corners of our quilled V's are doing here, help to make the symmetry more defined and the snowflake to be more pretty. There we go. This is a really good stopping point for young children, but we're moving on. We're going to make these heart-shaped designs by folding the center, making sure that crease is nice and you keep the paper on top of itself, and then opening it back up. And we're going to fold each piece inside. And then take it and squeeze the bottom again. This design is a little finicky in getting it to hold down. And I find that it helps to train the paper first before I glue it. So you first take the piece in half. I can see this one is not even on top of itself. So I've picked it back up to adjust it. But you fold the paper in half and then take each piece and fold it inside itself and then go back and glue them. Again, you're going to need 6. And here I'm taking each of the heart designs and I'm gluing it in between those curlicues of our curled V's. So they're going directly on top of each circle. Be sure to check your symmetry along the way I forget on mine till the end and have to make some adjustments. So our last design is making this little diamond shape, extending. And the way that I do that is fold it in half, and I'm using my finger and thumb as a measurement and taking the center of the first fold down to the center of the paper. And then I open it back up and glue it together. So we're making these nice diamond extensions that are going to go inside our hearts. I'm going to show you that again. Fold the paper in half. Make sure the paper stays on top of itself and that it has a nice crease there. Then I'm using my finger and my forethumb, and I'm taking the center fold to the center of the paper and then bringing it back out to form a diamond. After I had the paper folded the way that I like, then I take the glue and glue the two sides of the paper together. Bringing it back together, and that makes the diamond shape that we're going to use for the last piece of the snowflake. So after I have 6, I'm going to place them to see how I want them and what it's going to look like. And after I have all of them placed, then I will glue each one of these in place. Just working my way around, I put a little dab of glue on each side of the diamond extension, and then I place that in between the heart. I hold the center of the snowflake and then gently press the extension into the snowflake and wait for them to dry. You can go on from here. This does not have to be the last design if you want a more elaborate snowflake, but this is the last design in my snowflake. And again, the possibilities here are absolutely endless. I've shown a few designs, but there are many more. You can make quilled diamonds by quilling a circle and then pressing on all 4 sides, both sides at the same time, instead of like we did for the teardrop. You can also make larger circles, double curlicues, and then our last diamond is going in, and I'm going to take a moment here after I get the last diamond into the snowflake to reassess the symmetry. And you can see that it's definitely off on the bottom and top. So just take some time here. I also noticed there are a few places where the glue did not stick, and I'm making adjustments there. The glue did not stick on this little curlicue from our heart or on the other side of that. And I'm just making adjustments for the symmetry. This part is probably the most tricky. So after I get the symmetry done, that is it for our beautiful snowflake. If you make them, I would love to see them. I'm on Instagram at beauty_of_play and on Facebook at Beauty of Play, and you can tag me there. Enjoy your snowflake making.